Hi, I'm John Cerrito, and welcome to this HTTV special on community influencers. Our guest today is Kevin Hill from Short Hills, New Jersey. And Kevin, welcome to HTTV.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you for having me.
Kevin, you have influenced and impacted so many people in your life, something that you really enjoy to do. But tell us a little bit about your background.
John, if I may, I'd like to quote Mark Twain. And Mark Twain stated that there are two significant days in a person's life: the day they're born and the day they find out why. And I think that translates into purpose. So if you ask me who Kevin Hill is, I would say his purpose is always to help his fellow man and put him first. I've been fortunate. I've been exposed to a variety of environments, from private industry to academia to nonprofit. And I also hope some of the characteristics that I manifest is effective leadership, empathy, being a great listener, being non-judgmental, and being open to the flow of new ideas and the interactions with new and great people.
We're going to explore some of those areas, Kevin. But prior to that, I also noticed that you've been involved with a lot of strategic planning. What exactly is strategic planning, and why is it important?
Strategic planning is the ability to identify your goals, your missions, or your objectives. Once that has been taken care of, then to determine how are you going to arrive there. What are the resources, the manpowers, and all the other ingredients needed to get there. Then you have to come up with measurable tools that you can evaluate along the process to ensure that you are making progress in order to reach these goals, objectives, missions, and strategically speaking, visions.
Kevin, but oftentimes people have strategic plans and they don't come to fruition. What do you find are the major obstacles to not accomplishing that?
One of the primary observations about a strategic plan is the goals need to be realistic and they need to be attainable. So even with the most effective strategic plan, if those goals aren't reachable or attainable, or you don't have the resources to accomplish them, then most probably you will not do that. So I think that is one component. I also think the execution of a strategic plan requires dedications and diligence and commitment. So if those elements are not part of that process, you will find difficulty.
You know, you and I have had discussions about mentoring and partnerships, and we're here at the Central Presbyterian Church, at the HTTV studio, and you're very involved with the Central Presbyterian Church. So, what exactly is the mission of a church beyond its Christian message?
I would say, and I'll speak unilaterally as it pertains to Central Presbyterian. Our senior pastor, Donald Steele, at every service always says everyone is welcome in this church and everyone is welcome at our table. So to answer your question, our goal beyond its primary mission is to help those in need, to identify opportunities where we can uplift the human condition, to partner with organizations in the community that need our help to accomplish their endeavors. It is being a citizen of the world. I think that is one of the components of a church outside of its normal activities.
All right, but in your travels, Kevin, and you do so much in the different communities, what do you find is lacking on the other end? People in need. What do you think they need to see or feel or hear beyond money?
My experience has indicated, and we recently spoke about this, there's a nonprofit in Newark where we have been funding for years. But it's important for me that the Lena Willis Fund, which I'm a co-chair of for Central Presbyterian Church, not that we just financially help you, that you know we care about you. So I believe people need to see you care. It's what they're doing is important to you. It's viable. It makes a difference. They make a difference. And I think when people see that, some of the feedback I've been given, that it's been inspirational and motivational to them. So therefore, I have expanded my activities into wanting to meet with those we fund, to sit down, to discuss how we can be more effective and efficient together. Because ultimately, what we want to do is save and change lives. And I think that is the greatest scope of everything we do.
You know, there are a lot of struggles at different stages of life. And with young people, just the tipping point of taking one direction versus another direction that could be destructive is really mentoring. So talk about mentoring in life.
I can talk about being mentored, and I can also talk about mentoring. Sometimes in life, your journey can be distracted by things that are unproductive and unhealthy. And having someone to discuss these things with, to give you feedback and input, can be the information that changes your life. So there's a saying that in order to keep what you have to give it away. So I would also submit that mentoring someone, helping them, and if you see a life that you can redirect and they turn into a positive and productive person, and you have the smallest part in that, there is nothing better than that. So that's how I would talk about being mentored and mentoring people, how important it is to impact the lives of others.
Kevin, that is so well said, and that is an enrichment that works both ways. How about your life? Did somebody or some incident, did something change you to become the person that you've become?
You and I once had a brief discussion about being open to life. And there have been many people along my journey who have taken the time to chat with me, expose me to things, open new doors, redirect my thinking. And I think it is a collaboration of all of these individuals that help me to see things much differently, much clearer. You make a living by what you get. You make a life by what you give. And the people who have had contributions in my life have ultimately allowed me to arrive at that position. And I hope to live the rest of my life trying to make a difference in this world.
You know, Kevin, I mean, again, we talk about the struggling individuals out there, and this is what we're here for. We're here to help other people. Some suggestions. How do people get started? How do they get started in community service? How do they get started in maybe taking that first step forward to good health?
I think the best way to get ahead is to get started. Now, there are things that sometimes uncomfortability, fear, indecisiveness, they're all types of things, and we're human beings, and all of these elements affect us. My suggestion is that you rise above those things, even though it may be challenging and difficult, that you rise above those things. And it is amazing. It is amazing what happens when you are able to step over those things. Remember, courage is not the absence of fear, it's acting in spite of it.
So what you're saying is once you get started and you start getting through that fear, there's an energy, there's a hope, there's something that moves you forward to higher heights.
I do, and I think that when you see the effect, the impact of your behavior on another human being, on another organization, on a demographic, when you see that, they say in order to have healthy self-esteem, do esteemable things. You not only feel better about what you're doing, you feel better about you. And that's the end game.
Kevin, we hear and we see so much division in society today. And you're out there with boots on the ground, and you're in all different environments. Are we really that much different?
I always say that what we have in common clearly outweighs what we have in difference. It's about focus, and it's about not what you can see, it's what you're looking at. And if you want to focus on those things and look at them, that's what you will see. And my recommendation has always been that is nothing but a distraction. If I get to know you, if I get to work with you and spend time with you, I will find out what we have in common and how we can work together. I am an individual who believes if you work together, you can accomplish anything.
You and I talked about some of the things that you do for just well-being. I know you do a lot of walking.
I do.
Walking and music are very important to you.
Absolutely.
Tell us about it.
Well, during the pandemic, the gyms closed down, and I was a guy in the gym 3 or 4 times a week. And one of my exercises was the treadmill. When the gym closed down, I had to come up with an alternative. And that alternative was starting to walk. So I started walking 18 to 24 miles a week until my leg said to me, maybe you should tone that down a little bit. So now I'm 9 to 12 miles a week. I drink 75 to 100 ounces of water every day. I watch the fried foods and the sugar. And it really helped. And my doctors are thrilled about all this, by the way. So if they're happy, I'm happy. So I think part of a successful life is taking care of your health. And I've been hearing it lately. If you have health, you have wealth. Yeah. So I hope that is true. And when you talk about music, I am an unbelievable lover of music. And I like everything from classical to R&B to all types of music. But there are 2 particular genres that are close to my heart. And that's contemporary jazz and Francis Albert Sinatra. And I put them in their own categories. Mr. Sinatra, I started listening to as a very young lad, and I'm an inner city kid. I mean, I've lived up here a long time, but I'm an inner city kid, and somehow I stumbled upon a radio station that's called, with a program called Saturday by Sinatra with a gentleman named Sid Mark. And I was just pulled in and engulfed by this. So as a result, Mr. Sinatra, everybody who knows me, when he passed away, I was getting calls from all over the country. It's true. And I used to run a company in New York, and we had a Christmas party at the Millennium Hilton Hotel. The cocktail hour was all Sinatra. So when I listen to Mr. Sinatra, I believe he does something that's incredible. When he sings, you feel like he's singing to you. And he creates this environment, this ambiance, that you're right there with him. So yes, I love an abundance of music, from Quincy Jones to Francis Albert Sinatra, to Julio Iglesias, and we could go
George
on.
Benson.
George Benson. And my jazz guys, David Benoit, Earl Klugh, Keiko Matsui, Peter White, Jonathan Butler. I could go on and on.
So what does that music do for you besides entertain you?
It's such a craft. I'm not just entertained, I'm uplifted. And I'm also in awe. These individuals are a lot of them on the contemporary jazz side are classically trained. I saw David Benoit at a concert, and he has a song called Freedom at Midnight. But during the intermission of that song, he segued into Beethoven, and then he came back out on the jazz side. So you are mesmerized by these individuals. So they uplift me. And then when you meet other people who share your view and perspective on this music, it makes it's a close-knit fraternity.
So it's inspiring.
Absolutely.
It's motivating.
Absolutely.
It's creative. Kevin, there are other people that have influenced your life. Some people that you've met, some people that you haven't met. You've read their things, and you talk about some of these corporate leaders. Who could you share some of the thoughts that you've received from these who were these people?
Well, the first person I have not met was Jack Welch, who is the chairman and chief executive officer of General Electric. And General Electric is a very complicated, complex, and difficult company. And he was what I thought the epitome or the antithesis of a CEO was. He ran the company. He believed that business was not about products and services. Business was about people, internally and externally. He was also the company's biggest salesman. He would often be on Wall Street Week or various programs talking about GE and its value system. So that's very important to me. Also, who I did get to meet was George Herbert Walker Bush, our 41st president.
How'd that happen?
Well, there was a conference on corporate volunteerism at the White House. And the chairman of the company I was with at the time was invited. He couldn't make it. So he called me up and he said, Kevin, would you go on my place? And I was like, absolutely. So I got to meet President Bush. But this gentleman was unbelievable. He was director of the CIA. He was vice president for 8 years. He was chairman of the Republican Party. And whatever your political affiliations, I'm not certainly touching upon that. He flew over 40. He was a Navy fighter pilot. He was a successful businessman. He was a Yale graduate. So this guy you were looking at the consummate person. And those who knew him well, which is certainly endearing to me, they always said he was a gentleman. And when he saw you, he never forgot he saw you. So those are two people, one I didn't meet, one I met, but they're all people. The co-chair of the endowment with me, Bill Anderson, is a local guy in town who does a lot. Bill taught me about what service to my community really meant. And I remember when we started doing this, and I would come to everything. And he goes, Kev, you don't have to come all the time. I go, you come all the time. So I want to be like you. So he was one. There's a woman who I met, Diane Fialka. She was integrated into my network many years ago. She's a therapist and licensed social worker type person. But she taught me about staying calm. And if you stay calm, you can watch how things play out. She taught me about empathy and being patient and not overreacting. And those are skills and abilities that I don't just use in business, I can use in every facet of my life. There are also many people, and I want to also, because Lena Willis is so prevalent, I want to mention not only Bill, but Lee Barnes and Mark Washburn, who are also part of that team that allow me to do all of these things. But there are so many people, they all know who they are, and I appreciate them. But in the watching time today, those are 4 individuals that come to mind that have impacted how I live my life.
It's fantastic, Kevin. And some of those skills that you've had to acquire aren't easy to utilize under certain pressures, but they're important to have. Kevin, so if you were to advise, you're talking now to 16-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, okay, and they're looking for direction. What advice could you give them? What can they do to go seek that support or something that can help direct them on a path of fulfillment?
Well, I think you just touched upon it. The first thing I would suggest is that they align themselves with someone they respect, someone they trust, and someone who cares about them. So when they face life's challenges or distractions, that they have someone they can come to and talk about and resolve these issues and keep them on a positive path. I would also, education, I don't ever think you can go wrong with education. So if you can stay the course to become, education is power. And I think when you learn and you grow, and I don't just mean in the classroom, with the educational process, it's the peripheral learning as well. You get to meet other people, you get to interact with other people, you get a new perspective or a different perspective on what life is all about. So I would say having someone to guide you, have forthright goals about education, and to know that someone loves you.
Yeah, that is so important, Kevin, that somebody on the other side really cares.
Right.
Kevin, so what you're basically saying, because there are some people that we've talked about, some young people who don't have academic interest, but it doesn't mean that they can't find their way.
Correct.
We touched upon strategic planning, but there's another side to that when it comes to the individual. It's individual growth and development. And there's just so many things that people need to learn and do to get there. But ultimately, it's the same as strategic planning. Why don't you expand on that a little bit, Kevin?
I think in life, and once again on the professional side, it's identifying a goal and determining the elements you need to achieve that goal. On the personal side, it's personal growth and development. I would say in my experience, when I talk to individuals who have pursuit of a goal, the feedback that they give to me is they're scared. So it's fear, it's anxiety, it's doubting oneself. And I think these are common to human beings and individuals. We're human, we have those things. But what I found in my life that's key, yes, you can have those emotions. You cannot let them paralyze you. You can have them. You have to be able to rise above the fear, the anxiety, and those obstacles that befall you. Because when you do that, the horizon is unlimited. So it's not dealing with the positives all the time. It's dealing with those challenges. I won't even call them those challenges that confront us as human beings.
Well, you had mentioned once before, Kevin, that sometimes to a fault, people make the event bigger than what it is. So psychologically, that seems to overtake them. How do you approach something? You talk about speaking. I know you speak all over, right? You do corporate speaking.
I do.
Organizational speaking. Are there anxieties and nerves and fear involved at this stage still?
John, I would say to you, absolutely. But I think having tools in your toolbox and being able to reconcile these things and keep them relative to what you're doing. I always say in terms of speaking, if I'm speaking to 1,000 people or if I'm speaking to one person as I am today, the conversation is still the same. And the goal, we talk about strategic planning, my goal is at the completion of this dialogue that you walk away and I've made you think. If I'm able to accomplish that, then I've accomplished my goal. So I think on anticipating, and we talk about practice. If you're unsure, practice.
Prepare.
Run it by someone until you get comfortable. And you may still experience these things, but you have now fortified yourself to deal with these things when they arise.
So we talked about the young people before, and again, a lot of young people are kind of looking to get that next job, okay, to go get a new challenge, maybe a greater financial reward, doubt themselves a bit. So what are they doing to prepare for that?
Well, I can say what they should be doing. They should be researching and being well versed in whatever avenue they're traveling. You should be knowledgeable about it and be able to present this information in a fashion that is digestible to who you're talking to. If you can, you should network with people who have experience. We talk about mentoring again. It may be a mentor, it may be just someone you meet, it may be an organization that you have access to. So use every opportunity to learn as much as you can about what you want to do. And if you do that, you will feel more prepared as you move forward.
Is there one thing, Kevin, in summary, that you are most proud of Kevin Hill about? Is there one accomplishment, one philosophy, something that you've grown into that you look and say, wow, Kevin Hill, well done?
It is the ability to care for my fellow man, to put another human being ahead of myself, to make sure I make time to make a commitment and impact to those around me, my community, and people all over the world. And I can do that. I've been presented with some platforms that allow me to do that in an abundance of ways. So the most thing I'm proud of, and I'll quote Dr. Martin Luther King, who said, I have a great education. And he says, I've been able to do all these other things. But what I want to be remembered by is Dr. Martin Luther King tried to love somebody. So if my legacy is that Kevin Hill tried to help another human being, then I've satisfied that requirement.
Well, I will just say this, Kevin Hill, you are an outstanding representative of Central Presbyterian Church, a great representative of your community. You have given so much, and you have so much more to give, both philosophically, emotionally, and with your efforts by being present. And I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this interview, and I'm going to ask you to please come back and join us again sometime, Kevin.
It would be my pleasure, and the pleasure is all mine. And in closing, I want you to know how grateful Central Presbyterian Lena Willis is to have a partner like HTTV. You all do a spectacular job here. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Kevin, and thank you so much for joining this very special Community Influencer Show with Kevin Hill, Short Hills, New Jersey. Thank you.